Today in this video, I'm going to go over 3 different topics. First, I'm going to talk about my opinion on Matt C. Smith and Skirious problems, talking about Olympic quotas. And then I'm going to give my opinion on the Devon Kershaw Show, just because I listened to a little bit of it and noticed some things. And also on the Norwegian Olympic selections for men and women. And first, starting off, so if you don't know what happened with Matt C. Smith and Skirious Problems, the #1 Nordic ski podcast with Mika Vermeulen and James Clugnett, basically, if you don't know who they are, Matt C. Smith, South African cross-country skier, he was talking, he went on Skirious Problems, the podcast, and they were talking about Olympic quotas, because basically, Mika and Jimmy from Skirious Problems were saying that people who deserve to go to the Olympics this year aren't able to go because the smaller countries that aren't known for skiing, people just want to ski and go to the Olympics. So people who aren't as good at skiing are getting into the Olympics over people that deserve it and are just in medium sort of nations. Like, also, what they were talking about, Great Britain, Japan, Austria, Estonia, Latvia, they don't get relays, which is crazy. And Matt C. Smith is saying, like, it's not the small nations taking away quotas from the bigger nations. It's the bigger nations. Like, it's not they're not taking quotas away from the mid nations, really. Although, my opinion on this is basically, actually, I mean, they are taking away quotas, because if you were to remove, like, over half of these small countries of skiers, people who aren't even good at skiing, they're not even good at skiing, they're not one of the best skiers in the world, they get destroyed by so many people in Europe and even the US and Canada, and they just want to go to the Olympics because for skiing, that we have it in this way where if you want to go to the Olympics, and you're from like somewhere in Africa or the Middle East, you can just start skiing, and if you can do be okay at skiing, you can go to the Olympics and steal a quota from someone in the mid nation like Andrew Young from Great Britain, who's one of the best skiers in the world, and he's not going to be able to go, even though he's worked his whole life trying to go to the Olympics, and he's been skiing his whole life, one of the best in the world, and he's not going to be able to go because, like, people like Matt C. Smith, South African athlete, decided he wanted to start skiing like 3 years ago, and he's like only doing 1 race at the Olympics, which Andrew Young and all people from these mid nations would probably be doing like 3 at the least, like at least 3, probably more, at these Olympics. And Matt C. Smith was also saying, like, oh, we shouldn't compare stories, and it's not about who deserves it more, but I think it very much is who deserves it more, and we should compare stories, because Andrew Young, I'm just using him as an example, he has worked his whole life for this. Matt C. Smith decided to start skiing 2.5 years ago, and he's a good skier. He's not one of the best in the world, and he gets to go to the Olympics, and someone who's been working their whole life towards this, put in way more work, sacrificed way more, they don't get to go. And it's really messed up, in my opinion. Basically, if you are a decent skier or you're a bad skier from this country that's not known for skiing, you should not be able to go to the Olympics. Like, the Olympics should be the highest level of skiing in the world, and it's a bad look for the sport. And so basically that's my opinion. Also, the fact that we only have 10 relays is just crazy to be able to grow the sport in countries like Estonia, Latvia, Great Britain, Japan, where there's actual snow and like there's potential in those countries. Having a relay is like essential and would actually make such a big difference. And then moving on from that topic, I was listening to the Devon Kershaw Show, and if you don't know what it is, it's just another Nordic skiing podcast by Devon Kershaw and this one other guy. Devon Kershaw, I think he was like a Canadian skier back in the day. And they were talking about big sponsors on the FIS World Cup. And they're bringing up Azerbaijan, which is a big oil company sponsoring them, which saying how that's bad. And also I do agree, like, having an oil company sponsor a winter sport is ironic and not a great look for the sport. But they were talking so negatively on these big sponsors, and they were saying like, oh, like, hats off to the promoting, like, the marketing guys on FIS, because no one watches cross-country skiing anymore, and the sport's completely dead, and I don't know how they're getting all these big sponsors. And it's like, you're a Nordic ski podcast, and you're just talking so negatively about the sport, and it's like, why would Powerade, Burger King, Skechers, like, why would all these big sponsors invest in the World Cup if they thought they were going to lose money, if they thought no one was watching? Like, so I guess they just think, I guess in their world, like, I guess they're just smarter than the marketing teams from all those big companies, and basically no one watches skiing, but they just decided, since no one watches skiing anymore, they just decided they're going to invest now and lose money, because they're just so much smarter than everyone else. So basically, like, I just don't understand why they're talking so negatively about cross-country skiing when they're literally a cross-country skiing podcast. And also the stuff they're saying isn't even true. Like, how no one watches skiing anymore. It's like, in the U.S., you couldn't even watch skiing like 3 years ago. Now we actually can. A bunch of people watch all the World Cups. So that stuff they're saying, it doesn't even make sense. I just hear them hating on the sport when I've listened. And then finally, talking about the Norwegian Olympic selections, because they just came out. And starting off with the men, Emil Iversen made it, which I think that was a good selection. He's been consistent all year, had some podiums, done really well. He deserves it. I thought it was either going to be him or Uri. I wasn't fully sold on him, but he made it over Uri. Uri was not in. And then the big thing that everyone's talking about is Lars Heggen did not make it. And instead, Oscar Obstedvik, or Vike, did. And like 20 years ago, Petter Northug also was 20 years old, and he won nationals in the sprint and wasn't selected for the Olympics. Huge uproar from that, and now everyone's super mad again. And I kind of understand the decision, I kind of don't, because Vike had a podium earlier this year. He's had 2 podiums in the World Cup this year, one in a classic sprint. Lars Heggen hasn't had a podium in a classic sprint on the World Cup. But also, if you're Lars Heggen, like, what more can you do? Like, you just won nationals where Vike wasn't participating in. You just won the classic sprint and nationals, and then you win your first World Cup. So honestly, if I were him, I'd be super disappointed and super pissed off, and I understand why people are mad, because honestly, just like pre-select Vike if that's who you're going with, because there was like, I've seen these last 2 weekends, like there was nothing else, or this last week, there's nothing else you could have like wanted Lars Heggen, like there's nothing else you could have done to get a spot. So I think that is like, it's interesting. It's a decision. I mean, honestly, they both would have done. Heggen would have done great. Vike is probably going to do great. I kind of understand the decision. There's a lot that went into it, but yeah, people are mad about that. And then also talking about the women, Milla Grosberg and Andreessen making it. I was a little surprised about there, but after her recent results, she's done really well. I see why she deserves it. 20-year-old from Norway, so that was really cool. Fosnes, Ostrid Slind, Skistad, of course, Heidi Vang. Then we've got Caroline Simpson-Larson, who's done really well, and Drivnes, who's also burst into the scene this year, and Aubrek, the sprinter. So, yeah, I think it was a pretty good selection for the women. And then the men, solid selection. Although, if I were selecting, yeah, I would just have Heggen in there. That's it.